Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new moon meditation in the sign of Libra. The exact time of the new moon is tomorrow morning at 8:25 Eastern Daylight Time. Libra is a benefic energy to work with on our subject for tonight, our theme, which is the promise of the full and new moon work. Because as we know, this work is essentially the work within the interludes of the spiritual month, the new moon being the lower interlude and the full moon being the higher interlude. Times of pause within the outer activity of our daily lives, the turmoil in the physical, etheric, the astral, and the mental planes. The work that we do and have carried forward for many decades under the instructions of the Tibetan is a moment when we're told that within consciousness, doors open, light penetrates through, and the veils are cleared so that the energies of the spiritual hierarchy, which are seeking entry, can find release during these interlude times. As we know, Libra is governed by the planet Uranus esoterically, and it therefore is a powerful inlet for the seventh ray, along with its sister sign of Aquarius. So these two energies are powerfully governing at this transition period. And the seventh ray facilitates the work of the interludes because, as you know, it penetrates from spirit to matter and therefore aids in this bringing in of the light, which is the main object of our work. And the full moon work, in a sense, could be viewed as underlying all of the work that we're asked to do. The Tibetan gave 8 key ideas that he wanted presented to the public, the key ideas in his work. And although the full moon work was not necessarily one of the seed groups, it was one of these 8 important works that he brought forward. And he said it provides the seed of the coming New World religion. So that's something that we could hold in mind. He asks us to view it that way, as a seed of something potentially very powerful, when all of the religions of the world will also join with this work that right now is being undertaken primarily by the spiritual groups of the world. So the seventh ray facilitates, as I said, this piercing of the veils, the bringing down of spirit into matter, which really aids in our work because essentially that's what we're trying to do in these full and new moon periods. But as we know, all rays have strengths and weaknesses. And so from the more materialistic angle, we see the seventh ray being utilized by the forces, which we might say the forces of materialism, to institute controls. And that's increasingly stepping up. And the Tibetan highlighted this in the last century, this lower manifestation of the seventh ray in what was happening in Soviet Russia at the time. He said the institution of the Soviet state was a negative aspect of this incoming seventh ray. And as we know, Russia is controlled at the soul level by the seventh ray. But now it seems that this institution of controls is much more widespread, not limited to any one nation of the world. And so the work that we do at these full and new moons can help to bring in the higher aspects of that seventh ray and help to dissipate this lower manifestation of control. So let's just now take a moment to link with all other people throughout the world who are joining with us in this new moon work, followed by a sounding of the invocation of light. Radiance, we are, and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. Om. As many of you may know, that invocation is used in another aspect of the Tibetans' work, which is the dissipation of glamour. This is used in the dissipation for world glamour, but anybody who works with the dissipation of glamour should also take the opportunity to prepare for that work by working with the meditation that's given out for working with one's individual glamours. And then one can work more effectively with the world glamour. This is a powerful need at this time as we move through these rather challenging times in preparation for the externalization. And we know that the Christ on the inner planes is aiding in this dissipation of glamour. It doesn't seem we have to wait until his actual physical reappearance in order to have him fulfill his role, which is to exhibit a major blow, a major strike to world glamour, following upon the earlier blows undertaken by the Buddha during his time in northern India, during the prelude to the French Revolution, perhaps some might say what occurred in South Africa, and now at this time when the fogs and mists of glamour have descended so thickly, if that's a correct word, onto the physical, etheric, and astral lower mental planes. So we're all living and working within this fog, but through this fog, we also have to use our spiritual techniques, which are most effective in working with glamour at these interlude times, when the veils part somewhat and the light can enter in. Through this work of dissipating glamour, we're aiding humanity. We're aiding in the liberation of humanity. We're helping to fulfill some of the goals of the new group of world servers, which is to work in the interludes, to hold the vision before the eyes of men, and therefore to free the prisoners of the planet. All of these are key goals of the new group of world servers, and they're also key goals of our work at these interlude periods. And the energies that are aiding us in our work at these times extends beyond the seventh ray, because we know that the Aquarian age is essentially an inlet, a powerful inlet for the fifth ray. So we're entering into a scientific age. But as I was fortunate enough to hear a very brief talk given by Deepak Chopra the other day, I thought it was powerful when he said that what we're working with now and what we're under the control of now is a limited understanding of what science is. He called it the current science, the science which deals with the material world. But unfortunately, that's extremely limited, and it is paralyzing much of the work of science today. And so as we work in our full moon work, we can help to break through that misinterpretation, that limited perception, that what we see is the totality of what is, and break through, and through our work, dissipate this limiting thought form. But the new and full moon work also asks us to work with the available energies, not only of the age, not only of the accompanying ray of that age, but also with the energies that are available at each of these interludes. And therefore, this ties in what we're doing with the work of one of the seed groups. In fact, I think the keynote that we use for our new moon work really dovetails almost exactly with the work of the new and incoming psychologists. This group is charged not only with helping individuals to connect and align with their soul through a study of the rays and their astrological charts, but more broadly, the Tibetan says that this work of the new psychologist extends more fully to a planetary service of working with ideas as a group, linking together and tapping in through their ability to work with the endochronal work, tapping into the underlying thought forms that are seeking precipitation at any particular full or new moon period. So it's a very interesting work, and we're trying to contribute to that now. But the groups moving forward under this more scientific nature of this time will work, I think, with much greater understanding of the qualities that are seeking impression under any one time, the ray energies, the constellational energies, the planetary energies, the keynotes and qualities of the signs. All of these will, I think, eventually be formulated into a greater ability to work with a symbol for each period, and therefore work more powerfully at the precipitation of the energies needed. There's many things that could be said about the opportunities of these interlude periods. We know that Libra is governed by Uranus, the seventh ray planet. And this planetary influence, it governs, therefore, the new group of world servers, and it governs the full and new moon work. And Uranus is related, we know, to decision. And the primary decision being asked of many of us at this time is do we want to move forward into the light and accept the challenges that involves in our daily lives? Or do we prefer to take the easier route? And that's why Libra and Uranus govern what's called the reversal of the wheel. So there's many different reversals being undertaken at different levels of consciousness. But this full and new moon works asks us to consider that, consider what our decision is. And therefore we help humanity as a whole to make their decisions. And I just wanted to end these brief thoughts with I think, a wonderful passage which underlies all of the work that we do, these interludes, and it's from White Magic. And it illustrates the idea that it is through the new group of world servers that the plan must continue to progress forward. And that can only be undertaken as we work in the interludes and as we hold the vision. So DK says that during times such as this, when the three lower planes are in a state of considerable agitation, affecting humanity en masse, he says it's up to the new group of world servers to keep the door open between the higher forces and humanity. And he said that if we do not undertake this work, and this, of course, is not limited to our groups, but all of the those who work, he calls them the new group of world mystics. So you can see that it includes many. If they do not do that, then the esoteric teachings, the hidden teachings, will again, as they were for many, many eons of time on our planet, they'll have to go underground. So we're not necessarily free from this possibility. So he says capacities and powers can die out for lack of use. The power of divine abstraction and the faculty to find what has been called the golden path, which leads to the clear pool, and from thence to the temple of retreat. This must not be lost. This is the first work of this group, keeping the path open and the way clear of obstruction. He said this shutting down, which was the result of the inability to keep that door open, occurred in Atlantean days. And then the group of workers had to withdraw from all external activity and abstract the divine mysteries, hiding them away from the curious and unworthy. So let's play our part in assuring that that does not repeat itself. So we'll work now with our new moon meditation, strengthening the hands of the new group of world servers. We come together in group fusion. I am one with my group brothers, and all that I have is theirs. May the love which is in my soul pour forth to them. May the strength which is in me lift and aid them. May the thoughts which my soul creates reach and encourage them. Alignment. We recognize our place as a group within the heart center of the group of world servers. And from that point, we extend a line of lighted energy towards the spiritual hierarchy, the planetary heart center. and towards the Christ at the heart of hierarchy. And now towards Shambhala, the center where the will of God is known. Higher interlude. Hold the mind focused for a few moments on the planetary role of the group of world servers, mediating between hierarchy and humanity, responding to hierarchical impression, and meditating the plan into existence. meditation, reflecting on this seed thought through the impression and expression of certain great ideas. Humanity must be brought to the understanding of the fundamental ideals which will govern the new age. This is the major task of the group of world servers. Precipitation. Visualize the precipitation of the will to good, essential love throughout the planet, from Shambhala through the planetary heart, the hierarchy, through the Christ, the group of world servers, through all men and women of goodwill everywhere in the world, and finally through the hearts and minds of the whole human family. Lower interlude. Consider the many ways in which the power of the one life and the love of the one soul are working out in the world through members of the new group of world servers, so building the thought form of solution to world problems. Distribution. As the great invocation is sounded, visualize the irradiation of human consciousness with light, love, and power. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center, where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. from the center, which we call the race of men. Let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Oh. 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 Thank you, everyone. So now we come to the final portion of our meeting where we'd like to hear from you if possible. If you'd like to share a comment on any of the themes that are loosely related to the full moon work, its opportunities, its service, its thinning of the veils and its symbolic meaning, how we work with the energies, anything related to these themes, if you just raise your hand and then we'll call on you. You can unmute your microphone. Or for those of you who would prefer, you can put some thoughts in the chat box, but hopefully we'll have some hands raised. And yeah.
No, there's no hands yet. So you go ahead.
Okay. Well, what was really catching my attention this time was thinking about Libra in terms of balancing forces. And I was really thinking about how many conflicts there are in the world right now and different forces that are trying to be balanced and, different groups representing those forces and how each feels the other is right and the other is wrong, and there's got to be just one, when really we're being told in so many different ways in ageless wisdom that there's two major forces. And obviously, like in Pisces and Gemini, we have lots of dualities. And so it was particularly, for some reason, I was thinking about forces that want liberation, forces that want release from the confines of form, and want freedom and agency. And there seems to be this idea that we can go beyond all rules, all limitations, and somehow exist in that way. And there are groups in science and other areas that just, that's the way they want that possibility. And I think that draws out from humanity an equal and opposite response, which is that we have to abide by the rules of form too. We can't exist in the ethers floating around. We have to have form to work through, but form has laws and rules too. And then sometimes the groups that, or people or whatnot, that are attracted to the idea of laws and rules just want laws and rules and never want them to change. And so there's that equal pull in the other direction to always have that stability. And so these two forces within humanity of wanting that stability of the rules and the laws that never change, and then the freedom to go beyond all rules and laws, are pushing and pulling each other. And so I think obviously there's the need for both, but there's that need to understand that you can't abide in just one way or another. And we're always going to have to be brought back to a place that balances the two. And so when we work with the energies during the full and new moon, in a sense, we're kind of opening ourselves up, the freedom of something beyond ourselves. But we think in our world, but we think somehow that's, like unlimited, unfettered expression. And in reality, the whole universe is made of these same balancing forces between form and law and rule, and then evolution. And even our God is an imperfect God, the logos of the planet has his challenges. He's a rebellious God, and he doesn't want to always follow the rules. And so it's kind of built in humanity's sort of struggles in that way. So those were some of the thoughts I was thinking about in terms of Libra. Ultimately, we have to find a balance.
Yeah. Okay.
There's two hands raised.
Okay.
John Heron.
Oh, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Kathy. I'd come across a passage today, and sorry, the externalization of the hierarchy, and it caught my eye as very timely for where we find ourselves today in terms of our own personal commitment to what we're doing. It's from page 352 to 353. The task to be done by the hierarchy involves not only the physical plane, but also the inner planes of causes and impulses, of thought and desire. This all disciples know, but are apt to forget. The critical situation upon the outer plane is only a reflection of still more critical inner conditions, and you can give acceptable help if you evoke your own will and control your own emotions, disciplining your personality. Thus, you will be able to present a tiny focal point through which the spiritual forces can work. Through the agency of the many tiny points of light and will, much potency can be transmitted. And I present that to you, Kathy and Michael, and the group, because I was considering my own obligation to restrain my emotions and to try and keep a balance as we walk this tightrope that's called the 21st century through the last day of Libra. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, John.
With Catherine Cruz.
Catherine? Hello, Catherine?
Yes, thank you. I was just mulling over what John said, and for some reason, this time the idea of the thought form of solution, the thought forms of solution, really stood out to me, and I saw in it, in a way I'd never seen before, how in sounding the great invocation, we really are invoking the solutions. And through the light, the love, and the will of God to descend on earth. And so that's really, I'd like to plant that seed of consideration in the people who are here today, that we might think about that when we meditate and when we use the invocation. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that gives us an opportunity to plug the new Lucis Trust website, www.greatinvocation.org. It was just released last week as a tool for the general public to find out more about the invocation. And so if you have any friends or family members who you think you'd like to introduce to the Great Invocation, that's a perfect vehicle. It's a very beautiful site, has many different thoughts about the invocation. So hopefully you'll share it widely. Hi, Luis.
Hi, I guess I'd like to just share perhaps my sense of optimism when I look at the increasing numbers of people that are reporting having near-death experiences or telepathic experiences, or they're having out-of-body experiences, and these kinds of experiences. For me, it gives that sense, a real sense, a tangible, measurable benefit of feeling the nearing of the reappearance of the Christ. So when people, without any intention whatsoever, are turning up to their surgical wards for a routine cardiac procedure, and then they find themselves disembodied, looking at the whole procedure and listening on the conversations, and then, profoundly able to share those conversations, where they're supposedly not able to hear because they're under anesthesia, but to share that with their doctors, and this becoming an increasing occurrence. For me, that's this kind of a wider implication of this spiritualization of our collective. So, which is very encouraging. And I like the fact that science, because, at some point we'll exhaust the curiosity that this world has to offer us. How many spaceships can we build? How many, stealth bombers can we create? At some point, we'll just naturally exhaust the kind of intellectual curiosities, and then I think magically over to the real self, over to the transpersonal dimension, where we can begin to gravitate very naturally.
Mhm.
And then we land in this wonderful place where we look at ourselves physically, and we think of our energy levels and pending illness, and now we're forced to confront and probe deeper. In some cases, we find ourselves overcome with illness, and we're forced to look within for solutions. And there's a kind of beauty of God magnificence throughout the whole process, where if we were a little bit more proactive during the good times, during the times of health, we can pick up a book on meditation, or we can pick up a book on how to calm the mind, and we can naturally arrive to these great conclusions ourselves.
Mhm.
But often it's when we are kicked to the ground and find ourselves on our knees that we turn to God. And so I'm hoping to one day just turn up to my local general practitioner's office, and there, standing in front of me, is not a priest, but a someone who's gone through extensive medical training, but also has the capacity of of etheric vision.
Yeah.
Where at the same time they're looking at giving me a diagnosis, he's able or she's able to determine where I am along my evolutionary ladder, to what extent are my chakras stimulated or understimulated, to what extent my practices, my or lack of virtues, or all these dynamics within the emotional and mental fields are either benefiting or hurting my ability to enjoy and live in this world and thrive, not just survive, but thrive. I'm waiting for that day. And again, extend that further, where we have classrooms of teachers that they can see clearly via their higher psychic faculties the children that are in need,
Mhm.
who perhaps there may have some domestic issues at home, and the teacher can very discreetly begin to explore that dimension, and
Mhm.
perhaps offer help, and again extend that to our judges. And you think of the wasted amounts of resource, what it takes to successfully prosecute one case. Imagine if we, as Master DK talks about in esoteric healing, the point where our auras,
Mhm.
we become our own brother's keeper, where we can see energetically
Yeah.
our transgressions, so wouldn't that really discourage someone from criminal activity
Right, right.
if their actions were so obvious to the rest of the members of the community? And so I'm encouraged by the fact that we are evolving, and that with that means higher psychic sensitivity and the end of the cycles of sin, disease, and ignorance that prevails in our world today.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, DK even talks about the fact that there will be in the not too distant future this ability to see the energy fields around people. And therefore, he said he's going to break the backs of the materialistic forces because they will be seen, as you're saying, for what they are, and not just among a few individuals, but by many. And so that is great hope for the future.
There's another hand, David Trice.
Hey, David. Hello, David.
Hello, Kathy. How are you?
Good. How about you?
Okay. Look, I have a question for Michael. How did that project for the Great Invocation being distributed to churches go? Did you receive the reaction that you expected?
Thanks, David. Just for everyone listening, David's referring to a campaign headquarters here did to promote the Great Invocation to churches, Christian churches throughout the US. David, the project's actually still ongoing, and we actually are planning to launch it later this week or early next week. So we'll be in touch for those of you that have signed up for that group, that distribution group, and give you guys an update on that once we have some time to collect feedback. Maybe later this year, probably later in
Thank you
November.
very much, Michael.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so everybody can hold that project in the light and seek to see it reaching those who will respond to it.
Yeah, the distribution work is something anybody can take part in. If you'd like to learn more about it, you can just contact us. There's a contact form on the Great Invocation website, or you can also contact us at newyork@lucistrust.org. We're happy to talk to you about what that means and offer some suggestions and materials to facilitate that.
Well, I just wanted to share one other thought about the full moon group, which is really obvious. And it's just related to this whole idea of the seed groups. Although, as I mentioned, this work of the full moon is not specifically related to any one seed group, it underlies all of them. And just the Tibetan gives some beautiful imagery related to this work of seeds. And particularly, I think it's apropos to the new moon, because as most farmers know, the new moon is a period for planting the seeds. It's the dark time of the month. And so all of our work is similarly working in the dark because, there's not a tremendous amount of understanding yet in our consciousness as to really what's going on here. Not a full developed vision to see through all of the veils and mists. But if we think of our work as seeds, the Tibetan does give a beautiful imagery of the planting of the seeds. And usually there's two main sprouts, kind of like the symbol, I think, of the sign Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac, the spring, when those first buds shoot out from the trees. I think that's a similar thing to what these seed groups are doing right now. We're just at the dawning of the Aquarian age. The sprouts are just starting to happen. And he sort of describes one of the sprouts as linking to hierarchy. As we know, that's the work of the new group of world servers, is to shoot that bridge, project that energy towards the spiritual hierarchy. But the other branch is not necessarily, doesn't just highlight out to humanity as a whole, but rather out to one's group brothers and sisters, So it's one to hierarchy and the other to the group, because it really is the effectiveness of this work is really only realized as these small groups throughout the world join together as a group to contact, hold, and distribute these spiritual energies. But then he takes the visualization further and he sees all of these individual groups as working with a network, a lattice throughout the whole planet, groups linking with groups, creating a kind of web, through which the higher forces can be contacted. So it behooves us all to do what we can in our individual lives to clear our own auras so that we can more fully unite with our group brothers. There's lesser veils surrounding us, and then the groups as a whole unite with all of the other groups. And through that means, he says there can be a flowering and a consequent distribution of the seeds. And so more and more groups can be, seeds can be planted in the ground and sprout. And that the whole planet then becomes, under the Aquarian age, a place where he says it's a verdure, a green, a beautiful green is being spread all over the planet. And so that's, in simple terms, what we're really charged to do. Plant the seeds and distribute the new seeds that sprout. So, I just wanted to end now. And thank you all for coming and for your participation. And to state that the upcoming meeting will be the Festival of Scorpio on Tuesday, November 4th at 6 p.m. And now following that, 2 weeks later, on November 15th, we have our annual special seminar, which is a webinar sponsored by World Goodwill. And this year's theme is Envisioning a New Global Culture, the Search for Unity between East and West. And that will be, the New York aspect of that will be from 2 to 5 p.m. on that Saturday, November 15th. And we hope as many of you as possible can link up with that event. So thank you all and have a good night.